Right now, somewhere on this planet, a child is drowning. By the time you finish watching this, statistically 2 more will follow. And one of the strangest facts about our species is that more than half the adults alive today cannot swim. Not poorly, not badly, cannot swim at all. You'd assume that water is in our blood, that something as fundamental as moving through liquid would be woven into the human animal from the beginning. After all, your body is 60% water. You floated for 9 months before you were born. But the question of whether our ancient ancestors could swim opens a crack in everything you think you know about what kind of creature you are, what your body was built for, and why you, personally, react to water the way you do. The conventional answer sounds simple. Of course ancient humans could swim. We live on a planet that is 70% water. Our ancestors ate fish. There are cave paintings of people swimming. Case closed. And the first piece of hard evidence seems to confirm this. In southwest Egypt, deep in the Gilf Kebir Plateau, there's a cave tucked into a place called Wadi Sura. A Hungarian explorer named Laszlo Almásy discovered it in 1933 and gave it a name that stuck, the Cave of Swimmers. Small red figures, painted around 8000 BCE, move horizontally with arms outstretched. They look like they're swimming. 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was wet and green, dotted with lakes and rivers, and people apparently swam in them. But a cave painting of a swimming figure is not proof that swimming was universal. It's proof that someone, somewhere, could swim. The gap between those two statements is enormous, and the deeper you look into the evidence, the wider that gap becomes. Start with the bones. In 2019, paleoanthropologist Erik Trinkaus at Washington University in St. Louis examined 77 ancient skulls, both Neanderthal and early Homo sapiens, pulled from sites across Europe and Western Asia. He was looking for something specific, bony growths inside the ear canal called Exostoses. You might know them as surfer's ear. When cold water repeatedly floods your ear canal, bone slowly builds up around the opening to protect the eardrum. It's your body's slow, clumsy armor. Trinkaus found that a quarter of the early human skulls had these growths, roughly the same rate as modern populations. But nearly half of the Neanderthal skulls showed them, sometimes severely. These weren't people who accidentally got splashed. These were individuals whose ears had been flooded with cold water again and again over years, probably diving 3 to 4 meters deep to pry clamshells off rocks along the Italian and Iberian coasts. Their bodies remodeled themselves in response to water. Roughly 100,000 years ago, Neanderthals were not just swimming, they were diving. But here's the problem. The existence of Neanderthal divers doesn't tell you that swimming was natural or instinctive. It tells you the opposite. Swimming was a skill. Some populations had it, some did not. And when you pull back the lens on human history, a pattern emerges that nobody expects. In 2022, historian Karen Eva Carr published a book called Shifting Currents, A World History of Swimming. She compiled thousands of years of archaeological evidence, artwork, and textual records from every inhabited continent. Her conclusion was blunt. For most of recorded history, the majority of humans could not swim. Not wouldn't, could not. Entire civilizations, spanning centuries, were functionally landlocked in their own bodies. Northern Chinese writers in the 1st century BCE mocked southern peoples for swimming, associating it with dark skin and animal behavior. Ancient Persians refused to enter rivers at all, viewing water as sacred and human bodies as pollutants. Across medieval Europe, people feared water so deeply that being thrown into a river was a form of execution. Trial by water persisted into the 1700s. While Egyptians swam confidently across the Nile and West African oral traditions overflow with playful swimming stories, the cultures that eventually colonized most of the globe were, for thousands of years, cultures that could not swim. This splits the question wide open. Swimming wasn't a human universal. It was cultural. It was regional. It was something you either inherited from your community or you didn't. And that cultural divide didn't just quietly persist. It metastasized. Carr documents how European slavers observed Africans and indigenous Americans swimming with ease, then used that skill as evidence of their supposed primitiveness to justify enslavement. Those same slavers then forced the enslaved to swim for labor, to dive for pearls, to clean ships, to serve as lifeguards for the white swimmers who could not save themselves. Swimming became simultaneously a mark of inferiority and a required service extracted from the people branded as inferior. But if swimming is purely cultural, then the body shouldn't care either way. Throw any human into water and their muscles should respond the same. Except they don't. And this is where the story shifts beneath your feet. Place a newborn in water in the first 6 months of life, and something eerie happens. The baby's heart rate drops. Blood pulls away from the limbs and concentrates around the heart and brain. The airways close reflexively. The infant doesn't gasp. It holds its breath and moves its limbs in rhythmic paddling motions. This is the mammalian diving reflex, and every human being is born with it. Seals have a dramatic version, their heart rate plummeting from 125 beats per minute to 10. In adult humans, the response is mild, maybe a 10 to 25% drop in heart rate when cold water touches the face. But in infants, it is pronounced and unmistakable. Your body came into this world already wired for water. And then, somewhere around 6 months of age, the reflex faded. You lost it before you could ever use it. That reflex is interesting enough on its own, but a 2018 study in the journal Cell made it stranger. Melissa Ilardo, then at the University of Copenhagen, studied the Sama-Bajau, a community of sea nomads in Southeast Asia who have lived on and around the ocean for over 1,000 years. They freedive daily, sometimes to depths of 70 meters, holding their breath for minutes at a time. Ilardo found that the Bajau carry a genetic variant in a gene called PDE10A that gives them spleens roughly 50% larger than neighboring land-dwelling populations. When you dive, your spleen contracts and squeezes out a reserve of oxygen-rich red blood cells. A bigger spleen means a bigger oxygen tank. Natural selection had physically reshaped the Bajau's internal organs to accommodate a life in water. Their bodies hadn't just learned to dive, their bodies had evolved to dive. Now hold that thought next to the Neanderthals and their remodeled ear canals, next to the babies and their disappearing reflex, next to the 10,000-year-old swimmers painted in red on a cave wall. What you're looking at is not a simple question about whether ancient humans could swim. You're looking at a species caught between two identities, one written in the body, one written in culture. And culture won. Consider what had to happen. 1 million years ago, hominins were crossing open water to reach the island of Flores in Indonesia, a landmass that was never connected to the Asian mainland, separated by at least 24 kilometers of deep ocean, even when sea levels were at their lowest. They got there. Stone tools dated to 1 million years ago prove it. Some archaeologists insist they must have been washed across by tsunamis, accidental survivors clinging to debris. But John Hawks, a paleoanthropologist at the University of Wisconsin, pushes back on that idea. He points out that a single person washed ashore can't found a population. A group had to cross, and the islands were visible from shore. These were not lost travelers. These were beings who looked at the horizon, saw land, and moved toward it through water. Your body carries the residue of that history. The diving reflex in your brainstem, the way cold water on your face can slow a panic attack, a technique used in modern emergency rooms. The peculiar fact that your nose points downward, unlike almost every other primate, keeping water from flooding your sinuses when your face is submerged. None of this makes you aquatic, but it means the line between you and water was never as clean as you assumed. You are not a land animal that sometimes touches water. You are a land animal whose body still remembers water, in the architecture of your reflexes, in the wiring of your nerves, in the shape of your face. And yet the majority of people alive today cannot swim. A 2019 Gallup poll conducted across 142 countries found that 55% of adults worldwide have no swimming ability at all. Women are disproportionately affected. In low-income countries, it's closer to 75%. This isn't biology. This is the long shadow of the same cultural forces Karen Eva Carr traced across millennia. The civilizations that feared water, that sacralized it, that punished bodies for entering it. Those civilizations shaped the modern world. Their inheritance is not genetic. It's structural. It's which neighborhoods have pools, which schools teach children to float, which bodies are welcome in the water, and which are not. So the real answer to whether ancient humans could swim is that some of them did, magnificently, with such devotion that their bones changed shape and their genes rewrote themselves. Others lived entire lifetimes on riverbanks and coastlines without ever learning. The capacity was always there, dormant in every infant born, active for 6 brief months, and then extinguished by neglect or culture or fear. Swimming was never something humans couldn't do. It was something humans chose not to teach. The next time you watch a baby held above water, watch its legs. Watch the small, unconscious kicks, the closed mouth, the calm. There is a window there, ancient and brief, when every human body knows exactly what to do with water. It closes fast. Most of the world never reopens it. Somewhere beneath the surface of who you are, there is a reflex older than language, older than fire, waiting in the dark of the brainstem like a breath held just a little too long.